Australia's best-known stockbroker, Rene Rivkin, has been found guilty of insider trading.
I think my father feels very full of regret at the moment. And I think he feels he's woken up from a 10 or 15-year nightmare.
He became definitely narcissistic, extremely selfish, and he could be quite cruel.
Hello, I'm Caroline Jones. A year ago, celebrity stockbroker Rene Rivkin was convicted of insider trading and sentenced to weekend detention in jail. It was only the start of his problems. Along with escalating rumours about his private life, much more serious allegations emerged about his business affairs. In the midst of it all, Gail, his wife of 32 years, and his 5 children held their silence. Now they're speaking out for the first time. Of course, they've never been accused of anything improper, but they know their motives will be questioned and they don't pretend to be impartial observers. This is their account of life inside the Rifkin compound.
Well, tomorrow is D-Day for Rene Rifkin.
There's one law for the rich and one law for the poor. The guy stole money, you know. If you or I stole $10, we'd be in jail.
It's time for him to face the music, as we all have to.
It's just, and people say they've seen him on the harbour. It just seems to be getting...
I think what has happened to Rene has really destroyed his reputation, and I know he believes it has. It's basically made him a broken man. He's been portrayed as some monster, in my opinion. The unfairness of this, it really kills me. I just feel as if he's been incredibly misunderstood, and I think he's been out there as this very unappealing character, which I absolutely agree with, and I found him very unappealing as well. Totally a person that I couldn't relate to for many years. I feel incredibly guilty that I didn't see what was wrong. He feels such a failure and he blames himself so much that it's all his fault. It is. I know it is. He brought it all on himself, but he was sick. And I can't quite get over that I never understood it. I met Rene in 1970 at a lunch. He liked a girlfriend of mine, which infuriated me. But eventually I pushed and we kind of ended up living together, and I was very happy. He was quite different from anyone I'd ever met before. He wasn't attractive, but he was definitely a very intelligent, interesting person. But he felt he had to be a success to be anyone, and I knew that. I became pregnant and we got married.
No way.
We both really wanted children, and we had 5. We had 4 boys and a girl.
It was the worst night.
Looking back on it, I think my older 2 sons had a totally different father from my younger 3 children.
Until the last, I guess, 10, 12 years, it was just normal, just a completely normal childhood.
What's the matter?
Dad was just like every other dad, a great dad, really, really caring and really, really loving.
George, your guest is here. Good look after him, mate.
I couldn't have asked for a better father when I was a child. He always was a very hard worker. He was a slightly, I suppose, well-known guy around Sydney.
Looks like I don't want this to go outside this room.
Slightly more eccentric and unusual than your average dad. Somewhat lovable in the general public's mind, with a good sense of humour.
Away from the exchange, it's art that dominates Rivkin's life.
And I think the media loved him because he always had a irrepressible attitude towards it and was always quick to come out with a funny comment. He was always very honest.
Rene Rivkin is a flamboyant hustler straight out of Central Casting.
You, if you are a good boy, will be invited to my boardroom for the first Atlantic salmon ever in Australia.
The peacock of the exchange, gold worry beads at hand, dealing for people like Alan, dealing for people like Kerry.
I was once asked, what do I do for a living? And I said, prostitute. And they said, what?
And basically, I'm in the business of pandering, pleasing people for money.
I mean, he's Barnum and Bailey. If Barnum and Bailey happened to fall into the stock marketing business, they would have been Rene and Rifkin.
During the early 80s, his career was starting to soar and his confidence levels were lifting.
He forked out $1,000 a head for his guests. That's more than $250,000 all up to throw a memorable party.
When I look back on it, his behaviour became quite erratic.
How do you see yourself?
An insecure, successful trader.
I started to notice depressive episodes. He'd go to bed a lot. And I think everybody around him knew. But it was just taken that that was the way he was. In 1986, we had a daughter. I remember him visiting me in hospital with the 4 boys, and I remember he exhausted me. He was very hyper, and I don't remember him being like that before. A year later, it was discovered he had a brain tumour. Anyway, he had surgery, and it turned out it was benign. There was a crash in the stock market, and he was back on the floor of the stock exchange, I think, a week later.
I'm trying to get the bloody floor.
But he took himself off to a psychiatrist who diagnosed him during that period as manic depressive and put him on Prozac.
Half a point.
17 points in the last 51.
He had stopped seeing his psychiatrist after about 4 years. He used to talk about his manic depression as if it was a cold. And I actually didn't even believe he had it. I thought he just found a doctor to say this term, and it gave him a bit more attention because he was attention-seeking more and more, which I absolutely despised.
So do you have this incredible need to be liked?
Absolutely.
Why, you poor little thing?
Insecurity is called. Insecurity.
Sweetie, why are you insecure?
Because I was fat and ugly as a kid.
What does your wife think of all
She thinks
this?
I'm crazy. She can't stand all my, if you like, hangers-on or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was wondering what she thought
No,
of
she doesn't
that.
like that. Oh, mate. This is going to be one of the big collapses when it happens. Extraordinary 4-for-1 split.
Some of his friendships in the 90s were completely different from his friendships in the 80s. He discovered a bunch of playmates.
Is the weather back to sunshine or back to rain?
These people knew exactly what he wanted. The massaging his ego continually was just sickening, and of course he loved it.
You could have been a very good husband, but you're not, you know. We all could have and didn't have.
They really took advantage of it. He was Santa Claus to them. Of course, not all of them were like that.
In terms of the people that he was associating with in the 90s and the guys that he was employing in various businesses, I felt they weren't around for the noblest of reasons.
Are you still doing your lessons in elocution?
Oh, no, I haven't got any time because I've got the...
My father bestowed quite expensive gifts on these people, whether it be expensive watches, expensive cars. I'm aware of a Ferrari that was given to someone.
He enjoyed spending time with these people more than his own sons. And that definitely hurt. I mean, the reason is clear. His sons were honest with him, and these people weren't. They were willing to tell him how wonderful he was, and we were going to tell him as it was. We weren't going to flatter him shamelessly.
I actually am regarded as a bit of a power freak, and I admit I like the power I have over the people that I'm around. I don't deny that.
He became definitely narcissistic, extremely selfish, and he could be quite cruel, insensitive, erratic, not caring. That was probably the thing I really felt. I felt that he just didn't care about us like he used to. I think I felt quite unloved.
There's my car coming, see? I had to do it for you people.
He became a person I didn't really know. He was always ecstatically happy, spending money like you can't imagine. He hid a lot of it from me because he knew I didn't approve. He went into 2 nightclubs, jewellery business, fashion business, cars, soccer, you name it, he got into it.
You are a father figure to me,
yes,
and I want you to be interested and proud of me.
I want to be proud of you too.
You should be proud of me
I will
already.
be one day.
Some of these businesses were successful and some of the people were talented, but that wasn't the point. He was breaking all his own rules, going into areas he just didn't understand.
$16 million! You know, he denied that to me. No, I couldn't be happier. I turned 36 next week and my life is finally in order. It's thanks to Rene.
I think one of the reasons he was attracted to helping people was because of the death of his brother from a drowning accident in 1978. And I think there was a lot of guilt because Leonard at the time had quite a few drug problems. Rene really didn't give him the support he needed because he was very ambitious at that time and was trying to get ahead, and I think Leonard was a little bit of an embarrassment to him. That death was incredibly traumatic for the whole family. I remember Rene crying every morning in the shower for about 3 years after Leonard's death.
A Sydney jury has found that flamboyant stockbroker Rene Rivkin was defamed by the Seven Network's witness program when it imputed that he'd engaged in gay sex with his driver after showering him with lavish gifts.
Last month, Mr Rifkin lost a similar defamation case against 2 Fairfax newspapers. Are you surprised?
Flabbergasted.
Obviously, I knew that there was a lot of gossip and innuendo going around town about Dad's relationship with these guys, and yeah, I find that difficult to deal with.
Around the time of the defamation cases, I think he lost a lot of good friendships.
Come on.
I was angry, very angry at him. Angry for him not understanding that I'm having to deal with all these rumours and his crazy behaviour. The funny part of it was that Rene was so out there, and if he was homosexual, he would have told everyone. And he would have actually loved to say something controversial.
I suppose these rumours and innuendos got completely ridiculous when any link between my dad and the death of the girlfriend of someone who worked for him was suggested by certain newspapers.
Her body was found at the Gap. The coroner could not decide if it was suicide, an accident or murder. She was the girlfriend of Rene Rifkin's driver, Gordon Wood.
It was just appalling for us to deal with that. And I must say, I think when Rene read that, as blasé as he was, he realised that there was just no way to recover. But he went on with his life as normal. And that's the way he handled everything. Let's just have fun. Rene used to have a nickname for me, God forbid we have fun. It was a role I hated, but the more fun he had, the more serious I got.
A magistrate has ordered Sydney stockbroker Rene Rivkin to stand trial charged with insider trading.
It's called a vendetta.
Why is it a vendetta?
Look at me, I'm a tall poppy, can't you see?
Stockbroker Rene Rivkin has told a Sydney court he wasn't prompted to buy Qantas shares as a result of a conversation he had with former Impulse Airlines boss Jerry McGowan.
The high-profile broker bought 50,000 Qantas shares a week before the airline announced a takeover bid.
His attitude to the whole proceedings was, this is just an annoyance. It's just a little minor hiccup with ASIC with the Qantas shares. But he made himself a target. He did his normally fidgeted. He would drop his glasses. I saw him reading the dictionary all the time. He certainly could be perceived as not showing respect. I could see that.